One of the most surprising places for me in Morrowind is right here. Check it out. This is the entrance to one of the Dunmer strongholds in Morrowind. If you go inside, you appear in a very dark cave. But if you look behind you, there's no door. The only thing you can see are 5 blue candles surrounding you. Isn't that unexpected? Today, I'm going to show you a variety of surprising places like this in Morrowind, including the one that I think is the most surprising spot in the entire game. Each of these places stands out for a different reason. Some hide unique artifacts or valuable loot. Others are memorable because of their atmosphere, appearance, strange mechanics, or hidden stories. The place that impressed me the most combines all of those things into one. Even if you know this place, you probably haven't discovered the whole picture. It honestly blew my mind. But we'll get to that one a bit later. Let's start with a place hidden in Vivec, the biggest city in Morrowind. There are probably many things here that can surprise you, but do you know what really surprised me? The Great House vaults. Yes, every great house literally has its own vault where it stores valuable treasures, expensive items, gems, and gold. Did you know about that? And if you did, have you ever tried to break into them? Because that's when things get really interesting.
Keep moving.
I was especially surprised when I checked out the one belonging to the House Telvanni, which is kind of fitting, isn't it? If any great house was going to have something strange hidden away, it would be the Telvanni. You can find it in the Telvanni canton. Just enter the Telvanni Plaza, go into the Telvanni Tower, keep going straight and head downstairs until you find a door called Telvanni Vault. After passing the room with the ledger, you'll enter a narrow hallway with 2 doors. Both have level 75 locks, both are trapped, and you can hear some very strange sounds coming from behind them. Just standing here made me wonder why there are 2 separate doors. Are there 2 different treasure rooms? Or is this another one of those classic Telvanni tricks like the locked chest puzzle in Telfer? When you finally decide to open one of the doors, you're greeted by 2 storm Atronachs, and behind them, just 2 ordinary chests. After defeating the Atronachs, you're probably excited to see what the Telvanni have been protecting. Then you open the chests, and one is completely empty. The other contains just 25 gold. At that point, I was genuinely confused. This is the Telvanni vault. The Telvanni are known for collecting powerful artifacts and incredible treasures. So why is there nothing inside? You might think it's just another Telvanni joke and reload your save because it feels like there was no reason to come here at all. But if you don't reload, something very interesting happens. When you try to leave, the same door is locked and trapped again. How is that even possible? That must be some Telvanni magic. So you unlock it a second time. But instead of returning to the hallway you came from, you suddenly find yourself in the real vault filled with treasures. That was something I never expected. Who would have thought that the very same door that brought you into this room would teleport you into the vault? I've actually snooped around here more, and those are not exactly the same doors. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Inside the vault, you'll find expensive weapons, armor, gems, gold, and plenty of valuable loot. That's actually true for the other Great House vaults as well, but they're not protected by magic, just by more NPCs and stronger locks. But what about the second door in the hallway? Does it work the same way, or does it lead somewhere completely different? When you open it, there are Atronachs lying on the ground, and the room looks exactly like the previous one. The only things inside are 2 ordinary chests. So I started to think that this is actually the same room. And when you leave it, you also end up inside the treasure vault, which looks exactly the same as before. So it seems that no matter which door you choose, you end up in the same rooms. But what happens if we remove both doors with console commands? It turns out there's another door behind each one. And if we remove those as well, we can see that the room on the left contains the Atronachs, while the room on the right is the actual vault. So how does this work? If we remove the first door on the left, we can see another locked door behind it. This is the door that you can actually see inside the Atronach room, and it leads to the vault. On the right side, if we remove the first door, the second door is actually the one that leads back to the hallway. It's the exit from the vault. So to summarize, when we enter this hallway, we see 2 doors that both teleport us to the Atronach room. That room has another door that leads to the vault, and the vault has an exit door that brings us back to the hallway. Isn't that cool? The Telvanni vault really surprised me with its unexpected mechanic. Of course, it can't compare to what I think is the most surprising place in all of Morrowind, but you'll see that later. The next place I want to show you is interesting for a completely different reason than the Telvanni vault. It's a Veloty tower located on the island right here. Inside, you'll find one of the most surprising artifacts in the game, and it's very well guarded. But even before checking out the artifact itself, this place already surprised me with the loot. The creatures guarding it carry some incredibly valuable items. Each guardian has a Daedric claymore, and the skeleton war wizard has a unique vampire ring. But of course, the real discovery here is the cup. It sits on an altar, and honestly, when I first saw it, my first thought was, wait, did I just find the Holy Grail or something? The item is called the Bitter Cup, and it's worth 100,000 gold. But the most surprising thing happens when you try to pick it up. Instead of simply taking it, you get a message asking if you want to drink from it. If you drink from the cup, it increases your highest attribute and lowers your lowest one. And once you use it, it's gone forever. That was definitely not something I expected to see. How awesome is it that you can just explore a random Veloty tower and suddenly discover something this unique? You can actually find this place through a quest from the Thieves Guild, but I discovered it in the same way I found most of these locations, just by exploring. And at first, the Bitter Cup sounds incredibly tempting. I mean, who wouldn't want to increase their best attribute? From what I tested, it increases it by 20 points. But of course, it's worth remembering that it also lowers your worst attribute by 20 points. And what makes it less exciting is the fact that your attributes can't go above 100. They also can't go below 0, but that's definitely a good thing. However, it can still be great early in the game, especially for the luck attribute, which is extremely slow to increase. You can actually use a spell to temporarily make luck your highest attribute, drink from the cup, and increase it permanently. And what's even more surprising is that it actually works. Normally, you can't go above 100 points, but if your attribute temporarily goes above 100 because of a spell, the cup can still add those points as long as your base value is below 100. Isn't that cool? This is one of those moments where Morrowind lets you interact with its mechanics. That's what I really like about this game. But you know what surprised me even more about the Bitter Cup? There is actually another one in the game. The problem is you can't normally find it. It's hidden in a testing area that developers used while creating the game, and the only way to reach it is through console commands. The area is called Todd Test, which is pretty funny if you ask me. I wonder if Todd even knows this place exists. Inside, you'll find all kinds of strange things, like an item used for testing sounds, Todd's testing barrels, and chests filled with different weapons and armor. Did you know about this location? Oh, and if you're enjoying the video so far, consider hitting the hype button. It really helps support my channel. Okay, do you remember the place I showed you at the very start? Yes, the Dunmer Stronghold. It actually hides a few more things that I didn't show you. So let's take another look. Even before you enter, the place feels strange. Right in front of the entrance are 5 blue candles arranged in a pentagon. That's the kind of symbol most people would associate with something dark or mysterious. Then you notice a note hanging on the door. When you read it, you learn that entering this place is dangerous. According to the note, someone managed to escape only because they had cast a mark spell right before walking inside. Apparently, this place is under some kind of enchantment. Of course, that immediately makes you curious about what's waiting inside. I expected to be attacked by powerful creatures or maybe by magical traps with fireballs flying from the walls or something like that. But instead, what happens is exactly what I showed you at the beginning. You appear in a cave, and when you look behind you, the entrance is simply gone. It feels like there has to be another way out, right? After exploring for a while, it turns out there really isn't one. At least not without a levitation or jump spell. You can see rocky passages leading upward, but they don't actually go anywhere. From here, you can jump down, walk a little farther, and that's it. The next platform is simply too far away to reach without magic or very high acrobatics. But in Morrowind, it's actually not a big deal, right? So if you head further, you'll find something interesting. Hidden inside is a shrine with a Daedric statue surrounded by worshippers. That surprised me a lot because statues like this are usually found in Daedric ruins, not inside Dunmer strongholds. Isn't that weird? And then there's this high elf. He's the only NPC in the entire cave who doesn't attack you. But what's even stranger is that he has nothing interesting to say. Maybe he's connected to a quest. Right next to him, you'll find a door that finally leads you back outside to the exact spot where your exploration began. What do you think about this place? Did it surprise you as well? So So are you ready to see the place that I think is the most surprising location in all of Morrowind? It's a cave in the northern part of the map, and this place surprised me in so many ways. Let's start with the most obvious one, what you actually find there. Deep inside the ruins, you'll come across a burial chamber. Just look at it. A skeleton rests on a raised platform surrounded by several Daedric items. Next to it are two books placed on lecterns, immediately making the place feel important. There are also two chests filled with gems, along with several skulls pierced by daggers, almost as if they were part of some ritual or sacrifice. The entire chamber has an incredible atmosphere. It feels mysterious, ancient, and unlike almost anything else in the game. It's also packed with valuable loot. And do you know what the best item here is? An artifact that's surprisingly easy to miss. If you look up at the ceiling, you'll notice something shining. A lot of players could easily mistake it for a decoration or some kind of hanging lamp. Or they might simply never notice it because they are too busy looking at everything on the ground. It's actually the shield with the highest armor rating in the entire game, and it's also the most valuable one. Just one warning though. If you decide to come here, be prepared. This place is extremely well guarded. Before you even reach the burial chamber, you'll have to fight some sorcerers and some Daedra. And in front of the chamber, you'll have to fight two Dremora. Then, after opening the door, you'll be greeted by a golden saint waiting inside. So this place is unexpected for many reasons. It has an amazing atmosphere, incredible loot, a unique artifact that's easy to miss, and it's hidden inside a partially flooded Daedric ruin connected to a cave, which already makes exploring it exciting. But none of those things are what surprised me the most. The biggest surprise is probably the story behind this place, as it's very complex for what is essentially optional content. It's one of the best environmental stories I've come across while exploring Morrowind. It stretches across 3 different locations with books and notes that slowly reveal the truth about this place and what the people living in this cave were actually doing. To understand it, we have to start somewhere else. The first location I'll show you gives us our earliest clue about the men buried in this chamber. And interestingly enough, it was another place that completely caught me off guard when I first entered it. It's a cave where people were experimenting with summoned creatures. And yeah, something clearly went wrong. Everyone inside is dead except for one person trapped near the ceiling who you can actually rescue. The place has a really ominous atmosphere, especially with an ogrim living in its own creepy chamber. But the real reason we are here is this book lying on the table, Hennin's Wake. The book describes the funeral of Mordrin Hennin. And here's the interesting part. It mentions several people who gathered there to attend the funeral, and we can even find out 2 of their names. Do you know who they were? The very same people who created Skullcrusher. That legendary artifact can be found in another incredible location near Sadrith Mora. It's yet another place that can surprise you not only because it contains such a famous artifact and plenty of valuable loot, but also because of how unique it looks. The forge is built above a lake of lava with a floating chest suspended high above it. Okay, but that's not really connected to our story, aside from those 2 men, so let's go back to the funeral ceremony. After Mordrin Hennin's death, representatives from several Daedric shrines gathered for a massive mourning ceremony that lasted for several days. On the 9th day, they sacrificed enemies and slaves and prepared a special drink called the Cup of Passage. The recipe was pretty disturbing. It included the blood of traitors, Daedra hearts, alchemical ingredients, and flint. The guests drank the mixture and many of them died. The book describes it as a huge success because Mordrin Hennin was provided with companions in the next world. That made me wonder about the skulls we find inside his tomb. Do they belong to the traitors, or are they the unfortunate guests who became his companions in the next world? The daggers driven through their skulls made me think they belonged to the traitors because the daggers could suggest how they died. The guests drank the mixture, so it seems unlikely that anyone needed to use a dagger on them, right? On the other hand, if the guests were supposed to become his companions, shouldn't their skulls be here keeping him company? Maybe the daggers are just there to make the scene look more disturbing. What's really surprising is that later we actually find evidence that tells us exactly who those skulls belong to. What's even more interesting is that the ceremony took place in a specific Daedric shrine. I won't even try to pronounce its name, but the shrine actually exists right here in the northern part of the map. It's a very small shrine, but if you look around, you'll notice a stone table with plates, cutlery, and a bottle still sitting on it. They almost look like leftovers from the ceremony itself. Probably not from the actual ceremony, since it happened ages ago, but maybe the developers added these details as a cool reference. Okay, so the funeral took place here. If that's the case, then it would make sense for Hennin's tomb to be somewhere nearby, right? And sure enough, right next to the shrine is the cave cave containing the burial chamber. I think that's such a cool detail how you can connect the dots between these locations. Inside the cave, you'll find two hostile sorcerers. One of them left behind a note explaining what they were doing there. It turns out they had been searching for Morrowind stone for years, following old stories and legends. One line from the note immediately stood out to me. It's a quote from the legend that the ladies based their search on. Wrapped in crystalline embrace, the silver-pierced brow of the traitors shall ward his sleep. At that moment, everything clicked. Those skulls in the burial chamber really do belong to the traitors mentioned during the funeral ceremony. They were cursed to guard Hennin, and I mean that literally. Every time you pick up one of the daggers, an ancestral ghost appears. It looks like we are actually freeing them from their duty. Okay, but what about the ladies who found the tomb? What did they actually achieve here? The sorcerers had summoned Daedra to help them search for the tomb. Since it was buried deep underground, the summoned scamps dug tunnels through the rock until they finally discovered the entrance. According to the note, they found the tomb, but they still needed a key to open it. The note simply ends there, so it looks like they never managed to get inside. And the key does exist, but it's hidden in a chest in one of the rocky tunnels guarded by a Daedra. Of course, as players, we don't actually need it, since we can simply unlock the door with a spell. But one big question still remains. Who exactly was Mordrin Hennin? He must have been an incredibly important person to receive a burial like this, protected by Daedra, surrounded by treasures, with cursed traitor skulls placed alongside him, and a grand funeral ceremony held in his honor. Unfortunately, I don't think the game ever gives us a clear answer. The only clue we get is the time period when he died. It's recorded during the rule of one of Skyrim's kings. I wasn't sure whether that means Hennin himself came from Skyrim, or whether mentioning the current High King was simply the standard way of recording dates at the time. But considering how many important people from different Daedric shrines were involved, he was probably someone who lived on Vvardenfell and worshipped the Daedric princess. If you know more about that, or if you have your own theory, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. The only other thing I found is a cool little detail. This whole place was created by an artist named Mark, and the man buried here was named after Mark's first Morrowind character, which he used for testing and playing the game, as well as one of his old Dungeons and Dragons characters. This cave, connected to a Daedric ruin and hiding a burial chamber, is the most surprising place I stumbled across in Morrowind. Technically, there is another interesting burial chamber in the southern part of the map. Finding a Nord buried inside a hidden cave felt really special too. But its story is much simpler. You only learn a little about it from a Nord in one of the taverns in Vivec. The loot is still excellent, including a Daedric face of inspiration, but it doesn't hide an artifact as memorable as the shield. What's interesting is that this place was also created by the same artist, Mark, as the previous location. It looks like Mark created one of my favorite locations in the game and even designed Telvanni architecture, which is probably my favorite architectural style in Morrowind. So what do you think about these places? Have any of them surprised you, or is there another location in Morrowind that surprised you even more? Hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, thanks for watching!